Good morning, avid listeners. Today, we will dig deeper into a role of a professional who oversees the development and implementation of programs and services that promote diversity within an organization. Please let us welcome Ms. Layli Pietri, Diversity Director and Small Business Manager of Balfour Beatty Construction. Good morning, Layli. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to Thriving in Construction, the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I am wondering, and this is probably not in the questions, but since we've known each other for so long, what did you think when they told you, Patricia wants to invite you to a podcast? And I asked that because this is not typical in our industry.
It's not, but it didn't surprise me completely. But, my first thought was, what the heck is she doing now? Because you've always been so dynamic and you've always been a forward thinker. And so I was not surprised in terms of, I was just kind of like, wow, this is her new thing. So I was really excited. I think it's a great thing to have.
And I am so glad you said yes, and I'm glad you're here because you have so much to contribute to this industry. So could you please tell the audience about you? Because I know you, but I think it's important for others to say, what got you into construction, for others to understand what got you into construction and what it's been in these 25 years in this industry for you.
So, if somebody had asked me in high school or had told me in high school that I would be working in construction, I would have laughed. I would have said, no way. There's no way I would be in construction. It was never a goal of mine, but it was put in my path. So I was a young mother and had moved to a new city and needed a job. And I was struggling to find employment. I was overqualified for a lot of places that I applied, but just underqualified in some others. So I saw that a construction company was hiring for a secretary. And frankly, I just needed a job. So I said, what the heck? I submitted my resume and they hired me. And it was a blessing in disguise. I was put on a project that had an amazing team, and they really were people builders, not just building buildings. I had an opportunity to grow on that project to become the office manager towards the end with a lot of people who kind of mentored me. I had a project manager who would take me out. I would write down questions during the week because I knew nothing about construction, absolutely nothing. Nothing. And so I would see all these terms and construction terms. I had no idea what they were talking about. Because, especially in federal government, there's so many acronyms. You have no idea what they mean. So I would write down certain phrases, certain words, certain things that I had no idea what they were, but I was seeing them all the time on correspondence and on letters. And every week in the afternoons, on Friday afternoons, he would take me on the job site and show me what that was and what it meant. And really was instrumental in getting me roped into the industry and understanding it.
This project manager?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Brian Frady.
He's been a mentor, I guess.
Yes. And he's still with the company to this day. So.
And what's the name of your company?
Balfour Beatty Construction.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity when that project was done. They wanted to keep me. At the time, I was living in North Carolina, and their two main offices were in the DC metro area and in Dallas, where our headquarters is. And they gave me a choice, which one you want to go to. And they flew me to both and let me see it and explore the area. And I chose DC. And they needed help in purchasing. And while I was waiting for my next project, they said, do you mind working in purchasing?
So hold on one second before you go to purchasing, because that's another area. You start in the field, in the job site.
Yep.
In the field, looking at the buildings,
So, I started off as the secretary, and I was just, answering the phone and helping the office manager with, filing, copying, mailing, just a little bit of everything.
So one question, what do you think you had in you that allowed this person to hire you? So what qualities, and I'm trying to give perspective to women and young people that they think they don't have a place in this industry because they're not an engineer or an architect, or they're not a worker, an electrician, or a plumber, air conditioning, a trade person. What do you think allowed this person to hire you?
I know no stranger, so I'm easy to talk to. And I think that resonated with him. Somebody who was open and communicative and willing to learn. And I expressed my willingness to learn, understanding, recognizing I had no experience in construction, but also knowing what skills that I do have that can translate into what they need and being able to communicate that. That I think is important.
Communication, willingness to learn.
Yeah. And energy. A lot of energy.
It's key.
Yeah.
Simple, but it's key. Go ahead.
So
you go to purchasing.
So I go to purchasing, and the purchasing director needed help pushing papers, typing up contracts, sending them out. And I did that very well and really understanding the contract process, processing payment and performance bonds. And again, I was blessed with an amazing mentor who was my supervisor who said, you can do more. You have the capability to be a purchasing agent. So he recommended I take blueprint reading classes in the evenings so I can understand blueprints. And then he walked me through purchasing. And we started off small. I was buying toilet accessories. I was buying, Division 10 items, something simple that was just, numeric counts. And
Division 10, would you mind explaining what, for the people that don't know, what Division 10 items is?
So Division 10 items are specialty items. So they're usually things like, toilet accessories, toilet partitions, wall and corner guards. They're miscellaneous specialties that go into the meat of the building, right? So it's not your brick and mortar, it's not your drywall, but it's the miscellaneous items that go into a building.
Yeah, and some people don't know that our industry is divided in divisions. We call it divisions. Yeah. And everything that we do, everything that we purchase is classified for us to be able to organize our specifications is classified in divisions. So Division 10 is just only one of them. So you started in Division 10.
So I started in Division 10 and, slowly started working my way up in the trades. Unfortunately, where I got stuck was mechanical and electrical because those are a totally different set of drawings. And frankly, the risk there was greater. And so, I kind of reached a plateau in my growth. But at the same time, one of the habits I developed was reading the owner contracts when we got them and identifying items that we had to do based on what was in the owner contract and making sure someone was assigned to do them. And one of those things was overseeing our small business goals, our diversity goals, doing the outreach, documentation. And those are the things that I brought up with our organization. And at the time, we were just starting to do, we had quite a few folks that were not familiar with federal work, but I had just come from a federal job, so I was familiar with these items. And so they allowed me to build a program and processes to ensure that we were in compliance with these programs.
With the diversity and inclusion programs the government requires?
And,
how important is that?
It's very important. In construction, 9 times out of 10, people will look at the liquidated damages if you fail to complete your project on time. What they don't always look at is the liquidated damages associated with failure to comply with small business. And those are far greater in some cases than missing a deadline.
And can you please explain what liquidated damages are?
So liquidated damages are if you're audited and they realize that you didn't complete something that was required by contract, they will assess liquidated damages. So you have to pay a penalty. And those penalties vary and can vary significantly, upwards of $100 million, depending on the size of the project.
Daily.
So
the liquidated damages related to time and completion is daily. But the ones related to compliance, that's an amount or is a percentage of the contract?
It's the difference between your goal and how much you actually achieve. So if you have a goal of 50 million small business and you only achieve 25 million and they do the audit and realize that you did not follow all the rules and regulations, then you're at risk for $25 million, which is the difference. And they do that for all 6 categories of small business.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
About the different categories of small business. I want to talk about how do you select, that diversity and inclusion, and we're gonna discuss that. So you go back. So from being in the field as a administrative person, a secretary, you go to purchasing and you stay there for how long?
Oh, I was there quite a long time, probably the first half of my career.
It's 10 years, 12 years?
Close, yeah. And so
just doing purchasing,
but also what I started doing was a small business, but I did that as complementary to my purchasing. And our division was starting to grow, and we were doing more and more federal work. And so, this was the downturn of the market in 2010-ish, and we picked up a lot of breadth work, the base realignment work that the federal government was doing. And so that became even more important. And it became essentially a full-time job. And so the compliance. So I was able to create a position for myself.
And that's what I was going to say. You found a way to create additional value. Yeah. So you were being paid to do X, but you found a way to create value for your company that opened yourself to an even greater salary and a greater exposure, right?
Yes, definitely. And which was really important for me personally, because at that point I was a single mother and I had to earn more money. I had to.
How many kids?
So I have 2 children and they were young at the time. And I was faced with a decision, either I take a second job and my kids will never see me, or I learn a new skill and get paid more.
So you made that decision?
So I made that decision because I wanted to be there for my children in the evenings. I wanted them to have the guidance, the proper guidance. And so, I became a sponge and I tried to figure out what was available that I could learn that could fill a gap in the organization. And that was the small and diverse business opportunities.
So you decided, because this is important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people complain about, I'm not making enough money. They need to pay me more money. But you found a way, instead of asking for more money, because your circumstances changed and you needed more money, you found a way to add more value to the company, and you observe where is the gap, where is something here that is important, but it hasn't been fulfilled. And that's brilliant. And not only that you made the decision. Everything starts with a decision. And so I want to know, when you decided that, because your circumstances were not easy, I'm sure you were going through a lot of stress personally. What did you do that allowed you to focus on that plan and not deter you to feeling sorry for yourself or being a victim of your life, or feeling a victim of your life?
Feeling a victim. I had 2 choices. I could be a victim and be stuck, or I could pull up my bootstraps and do something about it. And I chose to do something about it. I wanted to be a good example for my children. So if you're unhappy, you don't have to stay there. You can do something different. You can navigate that and find a way out and do it productively. So that, allowed me to create a position for myself with a lot of support, from my organization. But it took time. It was not something that happened overnight. It took a tremendous amount of hard work. I mean, I remember and back then the drawings were paper. And so I would have these big giant rolls of drawings that I would take home with me because I couldn't stay late because I was a single mom and I had to pick up my kids and be there.
You weren't getting paid for that.
I was salaried at that point.
Yeah. So the number of hours you worked is not that you got home and you said, oh, I'm not getting paid for this, or I just did my job. You were going extra.
Yeah. And so, I think it was important for my children to see that you have to work hard. And so, when they were doing homework, I was doing my homework as well. And that you never stop learning. There's always an opportunity to learn, especially in this industry. There's always opportunities to learn.
So how long did it take you to get this? You said it required hard work and it required a lot of focus and time. Sometimes people become desperate and they just, they chase the additional money, but you were patient to create what you needed to create for yourself, and get the money came later. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it too is I had to learn how to advocate for what I wanted. I also had to utilize my mentors to help me get where I wanted to go. And that's key.
How do you do that?
Because part of it is explaining to them the value, what you want will bring to an organization. Essentially, it's a sales pitch. you have to show them and demonstrate to them how this is a benefit to the overall organization, and that you'd be crazy not to do it, because there's a gap, right?
And you didn't find resistance?
There was some resistance here and there. And that took time to demonstrate that this role needed to be a full-time job, and really having somebody focused on it, as opposed to because at the time I was purchasing and doing the small business. So it really, you can't dedicate 100% of your time. You can't get ingrained in communities that it takes to identify the talent, right? So you have to go to networking events. You have to, be out in the community to try to meet these companies that you work with. And that takes a tremendous amount of time.
So explain what the role is more, so people have perspective of, what diversity and inclusion means in terms of compliance for these large contracts for the government. What's the role? What's required?
So there's a number of different things. One of the first things that you have to do is make sure that you are inviting significant amounts of various small business categories in each of your bid invitations. So one of those is making sure that you have the subcontractor base to support those goals, right? And so if you're not out in the community identifying new contractors, finding the hub zones, finding the woman-owned businesses, finding the service-disabled veterans, that you're not going to have the subcontractor base to support those goals, numeric goals. And you also have to have proper documentation. The government's not going to take your word for it that you tried if you missed a goal. You have to document your tried effort. And so that is critically important. And I think it was unique in my position, having worked my way up. I understood what happened in the field. I understood what happened in estimating, because they let me do some estimating as well, which I quickly realized was not my thing. But I understood the process. So creating a program where I could implement the necessary processes in our organization that made sense, that was painless, that, provided, the least resistance. And I think that was key to developing the program. Had I not had that insight, I think it would have been difficult to try to implement something without knowing how each of these departments operate.
So your growth process took you to where you are today.
And I'll be honest with you, diversity and inclusion was just a part of my DNA. It was the way I was raised. So to me, it was like so easy. I could go into a room full of people of different ethnic backgrounds and I was completely comfortable. And so to me, it was just like, wow, this is easy. And I love to meet new people and I love to talk and I love to listen. And so it was a natural fit. It kind of just fell into my lap that, wow, I could be really good at this. And so I took a chance.
Because you are a great listener, and that's required for connection, to connect with people, to have that rapport and being able to influence. Because along your journey, you influence your way into what you wanted, basically. But I want to ask you about, so this is 25 years in the making on your professional growth, right? Which has been an instrumental part of your life. But then you're a single mom and now you have your personal life ongoing at the same time. I'm sure with a lot of challenges. I mean, you have two kids. And one of them, the oldest one, is 30, right? Mm-hmm. And she has a condition that has been a challenge, I would say, for you. Yeah. How do you handle that? Can you talk about it? Because one of the things I'd like to give perspective is, along my journey, I've seen the potential, like someone saw in you. This person has potential, but the person's limitations, their own limitations, don't allow them to get to where they could. Mm-hmm. Their identity, the way they feel about themselves, and the excuse sometimes, I have this, I have kids, I have this, my kid this, that, I'm divorced and I'm single, whatever, all that stuff. But can you speak to that, your life? At the same time, you're working for a large company that demands certain outcomes and certain results, but you're not leaving your kids to be attended by somebody else, by your mom, or you're doing it too. So how do you do that? Tell me about your life as a single mom with your kids and those challenges. And maybe you can recall a very, very disturbing moment where you had the work and also your personal life at the same time. And that kind of crossed at some point.
It's interesting how you do struggle as a mom and whether you're giving your kids the proper attention. there was plenty of times where I had to explain to my kids why I couldn't do certain things that other moms were doing. But I think communication with them was key. Talking to them about it, explaining to them the reasons why we were in the situation that we were in, and that it was going to get better. The other thing was I didn't feel like I had a choice to fail. To fail. I was not going to fail. I didn't have a choice. So I had to make it work. And I had to become incredibly efficient at what I did. So time management was key. I also had to realize my house would not be spotless. I had to give that up. There were certain things that I had to give up that I thought at the time were important to me. Having a well-organized home. My house looked chaotic. We ate a lot of dinners in the car, driving from one sporting event to the other. I didn't always have time to cook. And I had to learn to be okay with that. And once you release yourself from being okay to be imperfect, the rest kind of fell into place. Because the kids don't remember that they ate most of their dinners in the car. They remembered that you were there.
They remember your state. They
remember the conversations we had in the vehicle. And, talking about their games, talking about their day, talking about their friends and what was going on in their personal life as well. And, I was very fortunate in that I had supervisors who understood that sometimes, my kids were sick and I had to work from home, and I'd roll up my drawings and I'd take them home. Sometimes I brought my kid to work, and he sat in my office or she sat in my office, and I would give them activities to do, and, they'd wander the halls every now and then, look cute for everybody. But, for the most part, I had a great support system at work as well that allowed me to have a little bit of flexibility and still get my work done, to trust me that I was going to get it done.
Why haven't you, this is a weird question if the company's listening to, but why haven't you left that company? Because a lot of people, they just go jump from one place to another. I believe that's not the way, but to grow, right? And be good at something. But why haven't you left that company? Because as successful as you are for the company and personally, and the knowledge that you have in the industry and in the role that you currently fulfill, 90% of the people that I know would have gone from one place to another. Why haven't you done that?
The people. You become connected to the people. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You can make more money somewhere else, obviously. Anybody can make more money somewhere else. But you might not have the same level of people connection that you would have where you're at. I also,
because some people jump from, in this industry, a lot of people jump from one company to another. They hold many jobs. What do you think about that?
I think the number one reason has been the people. I have built a strong network, support network, friendships, lifelong friendships at the company that I work with. But also recognizing that not every company would have given me that opportunity to grow. And they did. And they took a chance.
Gratitude.
So gratitude. And the other thing is, the grass isn't always greener somewhere else. Yes, you might make more money if you move to a different company. And that's important to some people. But you might not have the best supervisor. You might not have access to the leadership to be heard, to have a voice. And I stayed because our leadership is approachable and I have a voice and I can speak and they listen. They might not always agree with me, which is okay. But I have that opportunity. And you don't always have that everywhere. So that to me is important, more important than a bigger salary.
Not that you don't want it.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Who does it?
So it's not that she doesn't want it. So when some people, I tell women when I have the opportunity to work with them, I've seen people there's examples of women that have joined a company as a secretary or receptionist, and they have gotten to be the VP of a company. I've known plenty. Not plenty because there's not that many women in construction here. I think sometimes I see in their faces that maybe the pride of doing that work, filing, organizing, answering the phone. It's not like it's not done. Sometimes people think that when they have what they want is when they're going to show up as being this leader or a triumphant, right? But my perspective is you do it where you are. In anything that you're doing, you want to show as if you are already where you would like to be, right? And so what's your experience? You show up in this company and you're the secretary. There's plenty of people that make more money than you, that make higher decisions, that are not more important in the sense as a human, we're all the same. But how do you feel? What's going on through your head and through your emotions?
I think taking pride in what I was doing was important, being incredibly good at what I was doing. Even if what I was doing in the grand scheme of things wasn't as earth-shattering or wasn't, as high up as say, the project manager and the project executives. Recognizing what I was doing was important to the organization and being really good at it.
How do you do that, though?
So, and I think just making sure that I was paying attention to detail, that I was efficient, utilizing my free time to learn, ask questions, be a sponge, and not wasting time. I mean, that was important to me to show that, I'm not just going to sit here because my work is done and, play around. I have some free time, so show me something, teach me something, ask questions. Is there anything else I could do for somebody else that could help, me learn something? As a secretary, I was posting as-builts on drawings because I had some free time, and it was a big project, and the project engineer was having trouble, keeping up with the as-built drawings. And so I was taking all the answers
and RFIs and updating them in the way we used to do them before.
Yeah, on paper.
And staple the RFIs into drawings.
I used tape. It was cleaner.
Well, staple was efficient.
Yeah. So and part of that too, when I was printing contracts and doing that, it was essentially just pushing paper. But I took pride in being incredibly efficient. So one day I timed myself, and from getting a scope of work from the purchasing director saying, this is the scope of work, I need a contract to this company for X amount of dollars, I timed myself and I had that contract written, printed, and ready to ship in 15 minutes.
Wow, you created a system.
And it was just like boom, 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 boom. And I was in full production mode. One, it was a little bit of fun to kind of like beat my time and try that. But two, my supervisor recognized, wow, she can get that done really quick. We can do a lot of these. And they realized that, that it took the stress away from my supervisor to know, like, I need to get this out ASAP. And I know once I give it to her, it's going to be done. And it's going to be done quickly. And it's right.
Yeah. So what can we do to bring more women into construction?
I think part of it is highlighting the successful women that are in the industry. I think most women don't realize there's a lot of great women out there like you, Patricia, who are, really paving the way for a lot of other women. And we just don't see them highlighted as much. Also, understanding there's a lot of different roles within the industry. You don't necessarily have to have a hard hat and boots. There's, the office side. And like any business, you have certain roles that you need in an office setting. You have accountants, you have people in marketing, you have, business development. All of that doesn't necessarily mean you wear boots and a hard hat every day.
And I know we're not going to have time to go deep on diversity and inclusion, but I want to do an episode solely on diversity and inclusion. So you're not going to get away from it because there's so much to talk about diversity, especially now in the times that we're living. And I really want to touch that, but I want to go deep. But I thank you for having that discussion on compliance and bringing in these small companies. We'll do an episode on that.
Okay.
So 5 years from now, where are you?
Honestly, I see myself hopefully doing more business development. Again, utilizing my people skills to get out in the marketplace and talk to clients. I'm seeing a lot of private developers who are interested in diversity and inclusion. And so that gives me a door opening to develop a relationship with a client. And so being able to utilize those relationships to build more business, I think is where I'll be headed.
So what's required to be a great business developer. I've seen people that they do business development, they go out there to network and, meet people and so on. They get the food, they get the drinks, but they don't translate that into work for the company that they are work, or if it's the owner, for themselves. So they go out there. There's some people that go to the same places, they meet the same people, yet they don't have the same results. What, in your opinion, 3 things that are required to keep in mind for you to be successful in business development?
One is connection. Connecting with people, being present. The sales pitch only gets you so far. And being with a large company, I hear sales pitches from companies all the time. And sometimes it's unwelcomed sometimes. So knowing when to have a sales pitch and when not to. Reading body language, listening, talking to clients. Ask them questions. Ask what they're struggling with. Ask what's important to them. People love to talk. So if you ask questions and just listen, when you make a phone call that's business related, you know what to focus on because you know what's important to them. And I think that's what a lot of folks that fail don't realize is they're trying to sell, but you're not taking the time to understand what that client really needs, what's important to them. And that takes listening and asking questions. And once they feel like, okay, you get what I'm saying, this is important. And maybe your sales pitch changes to address those needs. So if some particular area is important to the client, say, I have some ideas that might help you. Do you mind if I can follow up with you at a later time so we can discuss it? And I think those are, some soft skills that women can bring to the industry of, the people side. This is a people business. As much as it is, a bunch of engineers that are science-based, we are, at the end of the day, all people. And so it takes listening and asking questions to really understand what your clients are looking for.
Yeah, a relationship-based business.
Yes.
And I used to tell people, when you go meet a contracting officer or it's not somebody that, I don't see them with a dollar sign in their forehead. To me, it's a person. It's a human. And I have made really, really good friends. I mean, I have people that are, it's incredible, the value and the wealth in their relationships. Yeah. You become very wealthy when you have these friends, like you. I'm honored to be your friend. And I am very grateful that I have been given the opportunity to meet you in this journey of my life. And had I not gone out there to do federal work, I would have never met you and met so many wonderful people that I have met that I am privileged to know.
It's incredible, isn't it? The industry is incredible.
And at the end of the day, it's someone that if you have a situation, or I'm going to DC, I know I can call you, we can have a great time. To me, that's wealth. Mm-hmm. That's abundance. And it's out there for us if we only listen, right? And connect. Is there anything I haven't asked you that is important to you in this moment or for the audience?
So I want to pose a question to you, Patricia. It's something we've talked about in the past, but
I think we only have like 1 minute.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because you went from building buildings to doing a podcast. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, we're still building. So our company is still building. It comes to a time in life where you ask yourself, why am I here? And that question comes. I'm also a mother, we have five kids, and you have a company, you have done all these buildings. But then you say, why am I here? God, and whoever your divine is, what's the reason? What's the purpose of my life? And I have this deep understanding that I was put in this industry. Also, when my father didn't think I should be in construction. This is not for women, he said. And to leave a legacy. I saw suffering in construction. I've seen from all the times I've been in this industry, in the different roles, I've seen the industry suffer. And there's a lot of suicide in construction. that nobody knows about. And I believe this industry can give a space for women, right? So I would like to make construction easy. Not only easy for people to come in the industry like you did, but also easy for people to come, flourish, build, grow without the impact that it can cause in their lives, into their health. There's a lot of drug and addiction in our industry because people tend to, the environments that are created is not the one in your company that was needed to grow. You have great people in your company. It's a culture, but that's not the norm everywhere out there. So I intend to be a voice where maybe we can focus more on building people, not so much on the transaction. And that's a journey that I have no idea where is it going to be, how is it going to be, but I'm just following my heart. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Because I'm not clear as to what I'm doing.
Well, I'm excited to see what you're going to do next because I think it's going to be great.
I'm not clear on the how. I'm not clear on the steps of my journey in the next 5 years. Every day I ask God to guide me. You know, I do know I have a vision of what I want to see, but it's in my subconscious, I guess, in my head. But it's not something that I can tell you every day. I have a perfect plan laid out because life, it's not, right? It's not. I'm more into flowing with my heart in this moment, creating from within. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this talk.
And you're coming back.
Yes.
Because we're going to do a whole session on diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
There's so much to talk about, and I'd like to bring more clarity into what that topic really means.
Yes.
And the value that it brings to the world.
Yes.
Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Thriving in Construction, the podcast with Patricia Bonilla. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with others and leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you have any suggestions or any related topics you would like us to tackle in our future episodes, feel free to reach Patricia by sending her a message through the website anchor.fm/thrivinginconstruction or find her on LinkedIn. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week here in Thriving in Construction, the podcast.